Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Betrayal at Krondor. In our last episode, we solved the mystery of Nia's haunted shop. Before we continue on our quest eastward towards the town of Romney, I did want to make one more detour. Let's check our map. If you remember at the end of our last episode, I talked about the fact that we never went down this road to Malik's Cross in Darkmoor. The Lord of Lytton had asked us to get 6 sets of kingdom armor, so I figured if we head down this road, we might easily run into enough enemies that we could probably collect that armor. And currently, we have enough room in our inventory for some sets of armor. We were very overloaded previously. I was thinking about possibly selling off some of the extra items that we're holding just to make a little bit more room in our inventory. So let's take just a few seconds here and see if I can drop off some more of these goods. I've got a full thing of torches at 25. Maybe I can sell this. It's only 1 sovereign, but it's freeing up a spot. Make sure we can't repair this armor at all. That's fine. Yeah, our current armor that we're holding is actually in good shape. I'd like to hold on to this for a little bit longer. There might be some reason for that. We have a good set of rope with 18 uses left. We'll be able to free up a space if I use this whetstone on anything that we find along the way, so that's good. What about some of these other items? I'm not going to probably use this. And we'll get 13 gold for it. True Sight Tea, well, that might be useful helping with archery. Let's give that to Gorath since seems to be our archer. And the Dalatai milk, which is a good defense item, let's keep that one. That's probably useful for Owen. We have 5 uses on that Icer, 3 on this. And lastly, this item, your Flame Rune Oil. Why don't we go ahead and use it on our armor that we have to protect ourselves? Since James is one of our frontline fighters, let's go ahead and just coat his armor with that. And we'll give it also to Gorath. If we run into any enemies with flame swords, not that I'm anticipating that, but who knows, we're protected. Okay, it frees up just a little bit extra space. Alright, let's continue eastwards. As always, keeping an eye out for any enemies that might be laying in wait for us along the road in ambush. Looks like night's falling. Let's rest until dawn. I believe let's back up one step here. I believe we got turned around here. Sorry about that. I believe we left this bag here last time. We had left a shell in there, but it looks like someone made off with it. That's the risk of leaving items behind in a bag. They may not be there when you get back. This road, we were ambushed down here, and I wonder, yes, the enemy bodies are still here waiting for us. Didn't they have armor? Yes, they did. Let's take this sword for just a moment and use the whetstone on it to free up that space and give Gorath a little bit more experience in weaponsmithing. Alright, we'll go ahead and leave it behind. We don't need it. Let's take this armor. That's James's armor. What am I doing? Take this armor, give it to James. 82%, that's better than his current armor. I might switch it out. Let's check the next body. 2 food. Still good, not spoiled or poisoned. Let's give that to James. An Icer with 3 uses. We're not using our Icer that much. Let's not bother using up an inventory space for that. I think I'm trying to get in the house. Another set of armor. Great, let's give that one to Gorath. Let's repair that one. 87. More food. 4 rations. Let's see how we're looking. 4 would fill up Owen's to complete fullness. And a whetstone with 3 uses left. James still has 13. Gorath has 7. I'll take it, but I'll be willing to drop it off if I need to. And then this last body. Ah, some Elven Armor. Let's take that. We can always sell the Elven Armor for some good money. And let's repair it. Let's see if it ends up better than... That's not bad. I'm tempted to give it to James. I wonder if it would work well for him. It has a racial modifier for elves, so it works better for elves than it does for humans. But you notice this is armor, it 15%. The other one is 25%. I don't know if the racial modifier counteracts that, if it makes it better, if it's better. But I'm tempted to think this Elven Armor is probably higher quality and better for James. I may go ahead and give that to him. Let's give this over to Owen just to hold to make room. So I can give this Kingdom Armor to Gorath and the Elven Armor to James. Alright, so let's see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 extra sets of Kingdom Armor. 5 including the one that Owen's wearing. So I would need to get probably about 2 more sets if I wanted to be able to fulfill that order from Lord Lytton. Oh, here's those Nighthawks that we fought previously. And those rations are also still good. Let's see. I could give 4 more to Gorath. Let's do that. Now he's full at 14. And James could use 2 more. Here's an extra set of Kingdom Armor. Let's take that by all means. Great. And we do have room for 1 more set. Is the other enemy holding one? He is. That gives us 6 sets of Kingdom Armor. We've fulfilled that that order that we needed to fulfill. Fantastic. One last thing before we leave. This other enemy was carrying a Mortal Lamprey Blade. James has enough room to pick it up, so let's give... I'm just going to temporarily hand these 2 items over to James to make room for the sword. I just want to see if it ends up being better than the one that Gorath is carrying. 95, not as good. But at least we got the practice in using our weaponsmithing ability. Alright, let's head back over to the town of Lytton and let's drop off that armor. Alright, I think we're here. Ah, those men are back. We have to pay 25 gold sovereigns to get past. I don't want to get in that battle then. Let's go ahead and pay the money for now. The bag was heavy. James gritted his teeth in anger as he carried the pouch of gold coins to the men standing before him. He dropped it noisily at their feet, making sure his hand was high enough in the air for it to make quite a noise. Lord Lytton thanks you, he said. We thank you, laughed the others. Okay, you may pass. What a bunch of jerks. Well, let's go to Lord Lytton and let's drop off that that armor. I believe his house was up here somewhere, wasn't it? Ah, it's still a little bit of a ways ahead. To the east. It's on the other side of that little mountain there. Lytton's a relatively large town. Lord Lytton greeted them at the door. Have you brought the armor I requested? He asked excitedly. Yes, we have. James nodded in reply, but before he could say more, Lord Lytton was on his feet. Wonderful! Exclaimed the Lord with a huge smile. I don't know how you did it, but all I can say is thank you. Glad we could help, said James nobly. The Lord began to rummage through some of his belongings in a cedar chest in the corner of his house. Let's see, what do I have here that I could offer as a reward? That won't be necessary. Nonsense, he snapped. I want to help out. Ah, here we go. These things aren't much, but you may find them useful. He placed a virtue key and a parchment note on the table. They thanked the man, took the items from the table, and placed them in their packs. So let's see, we got a virtue key. This is a virtue key, or I'm a Gwali's uncle, James said with a grin, tapping the dorsal-shaped head. Originally, these keys were only made for chastity belts, but in the last 100 years or so, they've expanded the use of the design. The locks this will open protect very valuable items. Well, that's good to have. Maybe we'll run into something that uses those. He also gave us some sort of parchment? Of the fairy chests we have catalogued so far, Lord Lytton, we have found the following words can be used to open certain chests in your region. River, sword, and ice. It is our sincerest hope that in the future we will further be able to decode others as we find them. I shall send word by post if I discover anything of interest. Brother Jeremy, the scribe. Oh, so they've decoded some of the local mortal word locks. So if we run into more mortal word locks, we'll know that some of the answers are river, sword, and ice. Well, that's somewhat useful, I suppose. They took Owen's armor away because I guess it was better quality, but luckily we have this piece left. Let's give that to Owen. Alright, well, we've got room back in our packs again. Let's start heading backwards. We gotta go a little bit back the way we came here. Let's rest for the night again. Okay, with that diversion out of the way, let's return to our map here. The road leading south is right ahead of us. Let's head over to that here. And this should lead us down towards those towns that I said before, Malak's Cross and Darkmoor. Now, we haven't been this way yet, so we do need to keep our eyes out for any potential enemy encounters. Looks like there's a building up ahead here. James pushed open the door. Looks like this used to be an inn of some kind, he said, but it would appear that this place was abandoned some time ago. Alright, we've got a little side road here. Let's take a look. Someone was camping here, it looks like. And there's some sort of box over there. No, it's empty. No one, It was an empty box left behind by whoever camped here. Alright, well, let's return to the main road. A bird shot into the sky. Searching the landscape for the source of the animal's discomfort, Gorath whispered, I think we might do well to pay attention to that little creature. Whatever startled it may be close at hand. If we continue in the direction we are currently headed, I suggest we do so with great caution. In other words, there's an ambush waiting for us ahead. And our scouting ability increased. Let's back off and let's rest for the night. Okay, so it looks like there's a battle waiting for us, so let's go ahead and get into our first battle of the day. Oh my goodness, 4 Nighthawks, and they've rushed right in to attack Owen first thing. Well, let's get into it. Well, he hit his own person there. Let's move Owen out of the way and hopefully get him clear so he can cast. I'm going to have Gorath move in here and harry the same Nighthawk to try to protect Owen. Got a good hit off on him, but he got another hit on Owen. That's not good. 2 hits on James. I can move Owen up here. Ooh, that's not good at all. I can move Owen down here. Luckily, that enemy missed. This enemy, I don't believe, because of the way I'm positioned here, I don't think this enemy can move to Owen right now. So if Gorath just starts attacking this guy, yeah, he can move that way, and that's fine. I think this enemy's starting to retreat, so I'm going to go ahead and move Owen here. Ooh, they can move diagonally through our guys. Okay, that was something I wasn't aware that they could do or not. Ooh, Owen is not doing well. I think we might have to waste a turn using our restoratives. Let's go ahead and get some of our health back quickly. That should be enough for just now. Owen is taking damage. I believe he has been poisoned. Okay, but he's now free to cast, so let's take a moment and do that. That was a rough beginning to this battle, but now we're going to go ahead and use our spell that we love to use, Skin of the Dragon. Let's see. James is probably in the most danger. As you can see, Gorath has quite a bit of stamina left. James is down to 0 stamina. He's going to go ahead and rest. Gorath is in okay shape, so both he and Owen are just going to rest every turn. Notice that Owen doesn't recover any stamina when I rest every turn, because of the status that he's in, whatever that poison that he has. One of those enemies must have had a poison blade of some kind. I'm not going to worry too much about these enemies escaping. At this point, with everybody in the shape that they are, I don't want to waste any more of Owen's stamina, you know, helping out in this battle. I just want to get it over with, honestly. And let James heal up as much as is possible while we can. I'd like to get him back to the point where he has some stamina left. There we go. One enemy's down. And we've won the battle. I would like to check Owen's status really quickly. Yeah, Owen was on fire. His insides burned like hot coals in a farrier's pot. This in sharp contrast to the numbness he felt in his mouth and lips. The poison that had spread through his system was slowly sapping his strength, draining him of everything but his will to survive. Yeah, he is poisoned, so we're going to have to figure out some way to cure him of that poison. I don't believe your normal restoratives are going to go ahead and do that. I don't believe we have any other items that will help with that. Redweed Brew helps with sword play. This is a defense item, and these are just healing items. And True Sight Tea is for archery. I don't believe this will work. I'm not sure if the healing will help maybe slow down the poisoning, but we'll have to keep an eye on things. We might need to find a temple as soon as possible. Yeah, this is what happened. He had poisoned quarrels, this enemy. I'm going to go ahead and repair and restore our items here. That's some better armor than what Owen's currently carrying. Let's go ahead and repair this sword while we're at it. Let's repair our own sword, of course, first. James's armor took quite a beating. And that's all we're going to take. So yeah, we're going to have to find ourselves a temple as soon as possible. Otherwise, we might be in some trouble. Let's continue heading southwards. There should be some towns here that we'll get to fairly quickly. What is this? The name on the signpost had long worn away. James squinted. While he was expecting to see the spires of some distant town or the smoke of a chandler's hearth fire at the twist of the road, he was surprised to see instead a grayish lump settled near a clump of young trees. "Have you ever heard of a gray dragon, Gorath?" James asked. Gorath shook his head. "No, why?" Because that's what may be at the end of this road, James replied. Feeling brave, we can go and have a closer look. Sure, let's take a look. Chiseled from dark stone, the statue of the dragon was rendered with frightful realism, its burning gaze surely as malicious in stone as it had been in life. Most impressive of all were the yellow teeth and claws stained cleverly at the tips with a red pigment to simulate the blood drawn from an unfortunate victim. Interesting. One of those dragon stones over there. Let's go ahead and give that to Owen. Anything else? Let's look at the statue itself. The statue was large. Walking around its base, Gorath couldn't help but admire the sinuous curve of the dragon's back, the whole of it covered with beveled scales. Rounding the tail of the creature, he called for Owen to come and have a look, but was startled by the clouded apprehension in the boy's blue eyes. Something is wrong? Gorath asked. Owen gasped, as if to say something, then made a motion to the statue before collapsing to the ground. Greetings, Owen. Actually, sorry, let me restart that conversation. If I remember anything about the Oracle of All. Greetings, Owen. Where am I? While your body is lying, safe, still and silent in a cave near Malek's Cross, your mind has journeyed elsewhere. Here. Your arrival has been expected. I am pleased to have you as my honored guest, Owen Belforte of Tyburn. Me? At journey's end, you shall not be as you are, nor may you turn back the way you have come. The times ahead of you will be filled with hardship, and many times you will believe yourself far less significant than you truly are. In the days to come, you may stand at a critical juncture between Rythar and Mythar, and if that comes to pass, you should know this. A time comes for all things to die. What does that mean? Who are Rythar and Mythar? I can explain in no measure more as you will yet understand your world. In years and in wisdom you will come to me again, and a great destiny will be upon you by then. You will be ready for the fullness of truth on that distant day. Until such time, you may consult me on other matters. Tales say that dragons know their own destinies, but I'd not heard they knew the destinies of others. I am no dragon, though I wear a dragon's skin. I am the Oracle of the All, and I'm the last of my race. I am ancient, older than dwarf or elf, older than dragons, and older than the Valhiru who were their masters. Stars that at my birth flamed with violent power have long grown cold, expired. All these things I have seen, and farther yet I see into things that might be. You can see the future? I can glimpse things that may be. Such was the gift given to all those of my race. Let's ask him about Gorath, since he seems to know so much. A mortal travels with us named Gorath. Is he what he says he is? Can we trust him? He is not what he names himself to be, though even he may not know the lie of his heart. He will be a strong ally unto you, and I believe he may even be a champion to the kin who now curse his name. A great destiny awaits him, should he have the courage to renounce his pain. What about our enemy, Delacan? Gorath has told us of a mortal leader, Delacan. Will he cross the teeth of the world and attack the kingdom? Delacan will never cross the boundary between the kingdom and the Northlands, but through treachery he will strike a blow against both the kingdom and his own nations of the north. Can't you be more specific? Where's he going to strike? What's the nature of this treachery? I do not see futures as you imagine, but futures as they perhaps can be. I know only that Delacan engineers a deceit with 6 magicians, and that it concerns the fate of the kingdom. Well, that's all we can ask for now, it looks like. Alright, so we're back at this dragon. How strange, Owen seemed to have a vision where he visited the Oracle of All. If you know anything about the previous Rift War novels, you know that the Oracle of All rests beneath the town of Sethanon, guarding the Life Stone. Okay, there is a temple. Let's make for that quickly and get Owen healed. The Temple of Limbs Kragma. That's a little intimidating. Let's look at the mandala. By looking at that, we can memorize it, and now we will have opportunities to transport to these other temples if we ever need to. And back here. I did not mean to exit. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go talk to the priest. There were no walls in the High Priestess's chamber. James struggled to imagine how any such room could fit within the confines of the temple, seeming as vast as any river valley through which he'd ever passed. Even more startling had been the winding maze-like corridors that Death Acolyte had led them through to reach the room. Few rush to speak to Our Lady. I am curious to know why you wish to Oh, sorry. Let me start over. Few rush to speak to Our Lady. I am curious to know why you wish to converse with us, the High Priestess said softly. A gauzy black pavilion draped her throne, obscuring from view all but her lithe form, limned in witchlight and a single pale foot which she rested upon a skull carved of onyx. Why do you call upon the drawer of nets? Seeing no point in lying to her, James shrugged. Curiosity as much as anything, High Priestess. I wish to learn a little more about what awaits me when I am no longer living, and you, short of the Mother Matriarch in Rillanon, are probably the one with the best answers. I do not like surprises. Unless you are prepared to devote your life to her services, I cannot help you. It is not something I may merely unfold for you in an hour or an afternoon, she said. I will say this. There is no joy or love in her realm, but neither is there sorrow or pain. You have nothing to fear of her unless you swear the oaths of a Nighthawk. Why? What would that mean? Pain everlasting, the High Priestess replied. Those who are Nighthawks have sworn a dark oath, and those of them that are known as the Black Slayers swear the darkest oaths of all, allying themselves to other gods or goddesses who would hold them free of the portal of death at the price of their souls. Once a man becomes a Black Slayer, he may only be called into her halls by an invocation of Limbs Kragma herself, the prayer of final rest. So basically, Limbs Kragma is the goddess of death, but those who become the Nighthawks, the Black Slayers, who can rise again after their death, they've forsworn her, and they can only be put to death by a special spell that she mentioned there, Final Rest. Alright, let's get cured. As you notice, his poisoning did go down. It does go down over time, but by the time it went to 0, he'd be dead. Owen was studied. It will require many hours of our time, and even priests must find ways to pay for their needs. For your condition, we will need many oils and candles. 145 sovereigns and 5 royals should cover the cost of our services. It's a lot of money. It's going to hurt, but you know what? It's better than him going into near death. Owen sat up. Looking around the room, he blinked at the haggard-looking healer priest who was propped up in the corner. Dimly, he recalled the events of the grueling hours which had passed, hours in which he had thrashed on the bed as clerics chanted over him, other times in which he lapsed into fevered dreams filled with nightmarish creatures. You are free of your demons, the priest said with a weak smile. His voice was gravelly with exertion. It was a tough battle, but you are well enough as you are. You may go. Alright, so Owen has been cured. So as you can see, the temples are very useful when you run into situations like that. If we had some sort of potion that would have cured poison, we could have used that, but we didn't. And by the time that poison wore off, Owen would have run out of hit points. He would have been gone. Heck, even just the time we spent talking to the priest brought him down to 26 health. He's not in good shape. Let's go ahead and rest. It's going to use up some of our food, but I'd like to camp until we're healed. There we go. Now we're in better shape. If we get into another battle, we should be all right. Let's continue heading south then. Let's just check our map real quick. Or, sorry, we've already made it. We've made it to the south part, and now we're heading westwards now towards Malik's Cross. And I believe the road that's to the south there leads back over to the Oracle. Okay. Let's just double check that. Yes, okay, yeah, we've already been that way. So let's continue heading west. Let's make it to that next town. Let's keeping our eyes out, of course, for enemies, as we always do. We're getting close to nightfall again. Once we get to town, we'll be able to purchase, hopefully, more rations. Alright, let's double check our map and see how far we are from the town. Looks like we're getting close. The town kind of meanders back and forth. Alright, looks like there's some gravestones over there, and it looks like there's a signpost. There's Malak's Cross. Let's head into town. James studied the small road. Following it with his eyes, he saw the road rise and fall, turning this way and that as it descended into the distance, towards a large town. Malak's Cross, James said. Do you think we should go in for supplies? Absolutely. Let's take a look. Malak's Cross was a tumultuous town grown fat on the prosperity of centuries. Exotic gewgaws bulged in storefront windows, each mere fractions of the wealth that coursed daily through the busy trading town. Over it all loomed the impressive bulk of the Chapel of Ishop, a temple nearly as ancient as the Kingdom of the Isles itself. So there's another temple that we can visit. Let's see what else we have here. A shop and an inn. Ah, something in this barrel. Some more rope. We'll grab it. Oh, no, don't give that. Sorry. Let's go ahead and grab that rope for now. Maybe we can sell it. Who knows? There's a house over here. Let's see what's there. A man halted them. "Ticket!" he barked through gapped teeth. When James failed to respond quickly enough, he leaned closer and shouted, "Are you deaf? I need your lecture ticket." "What if we don't have a ticket?" James replied. The man smiled an unpleasant smile. Hooking his thumb at four extremely well-developed soldiers who looked to be members of Malak's Cross constabulary, he squinted. "Do you have tickets for this evening's lecture or no?" "No," James said, backing into the street. "We don't want any trouble. We'll be leaving now." The door slammed closed. Okay, so there's some sort of lecture going on over here. Maybe we can get a hold of tickets. I don't know what that's about. Let's look at the inn. I didn't mean to click on that, but apparently I clicked on one of the figures. James motioned to the figure across the room. The man walked over to join them. He stood before them, eyebrows arched inquisitively. "I hope you haven't come for the match. It's already over." "Match? What kind of match?" "You're in the Queen's Row and you can ask that question? A chess match, of course." It was wondrous. Jamie Tiller was defending his title against that snot-nosed prat from the Abbey. Kyle Fisher. Jamie opened, moved his queen's pawn to 4th rank. Fisher opened with Abar's gambit. Arrogant cud. But Jamie actually maneuvered it into it with his knight. I was thinking he was going for the queen. But he sacrificed his king's rook and took the priest. It's a brilliant move, but it left his own queen vulnerable, didn't it? You've got a good head for the game, senor. The prince likes to play, but we don't always have a board handy. Once you learn to play in your head, a board almost becomes redundant. I have to admit it's tougher earlier into the game. More pieces to keep track of. It's still fun to watch, though. That's why the Queen's Row is here. Perhaps I can relate the rest of the game over ale, assuming you gents are buying. What can I get you today? Alright, let's talk to him about, Oh, we have an option for a double. Maybe we can ask about that person that looks like James that we keep hearing about. Do I look familiar to you? Can't say you do. Should I know you? Not me, my face. I want you to take a close look at me. Are you sure you don't know of anyone with a face like mine? Didn't say I'd never seen anyone with a face like yours. I just said I'd never seen you before. The man you're after is named Lyle Rigger. Is he related to you? Okay, so Lyle Rigger is the person we're looking for. Not sure. I don't know anything about my father, and my mother died when I was young. It's possible either of them could have had another child. All I wish to do is talk to him, find out if we have any common history. Good enough. He's been running some sort of errand, though he hasn't told me what it was about or who hired him. He said if he should drop out of sight for any length of time, he'd be hiding in Darkmoor, probably in the common storage bins there. If you get near there, call out that Ivan has sent you. He'll make an appearance. I'll warn you though, trouble often follows after him. I'd be prepared for a rumble. Sounds familiar. If he's no brother of mine, he's at least a close cousin. Okay, so if we head over to Darkmoor, we can find this guy that looks like James. We'll keep that in mind. What about food? Any chance we can get something to eat around here? Wouldn't be much of a pub if we couldn't. Is it to eat here, or are you looking for something for the road? The road. If your cook can make up a batch of rations, that would be fine. It's a done deal if you put up the 7 gold a pack. Still want them? Absolutely. I don't see any reason I wouldn't. It's a reasonable price. Good then. I'll set a blaze under Daphne. She'll have them for you in a few moments. Let's go ahead and purchase I'll go ahead and get the full 14. One for James, one for Owen, and one for Gorath. Let's talk to him again. Jab me in the ribs when he wants to hear about the rest of the match. Invigorating sight that was. Now what is it I can get for you? Alright, what about the Abbey? The Abbey's developing quite a reputation, isn't it? I've heard a number of stories. I doubt you've heard the stories I've heard about the place. They produce a few fine minds there, aye, but they're also a refuse heap for nobles who wish to get their sons out from underfoot. The majority of them are runts. And the few that aren't? The special ones, they're fine men. Ishop willing, they'll grow into fine dukes and barons and such. A lot of them have become wondrous tacticians. That's what the Abbey specializes in. What about the statue? We found the strangest thing earlier. It was a statue of a dragon out in the middle of nowhere. It was just standing in this little culvert with nothing around it. Found old Malek's kill, did you? He wasn't always in the middle of nowhere. One time he was just a hop, skip, and a jump from the main row of Malek's cross. But when the town moved, they left poor old Malek to fend for his own. Why did they leave him behind? The only man that ever thought Malek was a hero was Malek. Low-born folk out and hated him. Anyway, when the town began to fall under new raids by Keshian raiders come up from the Sea of Dreams, they decided to move the center of town inside the Sea of the Chapel of Ishop. Raiders wouldn't touch the town after that, seeing as how the brothers of Ishop came from Kesh. Later, after things had settled down a bit, they decided to leave the statue out there and let nature take it back. Strange thing about it, folks what have visited recently have said a number of strange things about it. Said it was talking to them. Well, we know all about that, don't we? We can ask about the lost and found. Do you keep things that people have lost here? Sometimes, if it interests me, or if it seems like they'd be coming back for it. Why, have you lost something here before? No, I was just wondering if there's anything interesting you found that you think it's unlikely the original owner is going to come back for. If so, I might be interested in taking them off your hands. Probably wouldn't do me any harm to clear out the area beneath the bar. I believe there's probably a few things. Tell you what, I'll sell a lot of them sight unseen for, say, 50 sovereigns. Deal? That's a hard choice to make. Well, you know, we've got quite a bit of money. Let's see what we get for it. Why not? Sold, barkeep. I'll take it all. I'll have to gather them up first. I'll give it to you before you leave and put the sale against your bill. Alright, what about challenge? Any chance I can interest you in a game of chess? I'm not so sure you'd want to play against me. I just learned a few new moves from a book I borrowed from the Abbey. Tell me the stakes, then I'll tell you whether I'm interested or not. Emeralds. Think you're up to it? Well, I don't have any emeralds right now. Instinct tells me to be a bad bet, especially since I don't know your game. No bet. You'll come back and take your beating. Gut feeling tells me so. En passant, that's a tress move. Let's ask about that. Sorry, but you've piqued my curiosity. What is an en passant? I've seen quite a few variations of chess, but I don't think I've ever heard of that move. It's Keshian. One night I was playing this fellow from Durban. I had my game swinging on one particular pawn, and the game was in my favor. So what does he do but move his pawn to the square directly behind mine, then claim to have captured my piece? That's an illegal move. So I said. He goes on to tell me that it's one of the most fundamental moves of the game. We argued about it for 3 hours until a student ran from the Queen's Row to the Abbey to dig up an old book. And there it was, back of the text, written in Keshian, the original rules to the game, en passant. Cost me 2 diamonds and very nearly the Queen's Row itself. Needless to say, I don't allow that rule to be played in here anymore. Last fellow that tried to use it on me was a fellow named Navon de Sandow, and I set him straight, though he showed me an incredible move he invented called Sandow's Retreat. Can't quite remember how it worked now, though. And the Abar's Gambit. Isn't there another move like Abar's Gambit, but a little different? Aye, there's Albert's turn. That's a brave man's gambit. In the right place, it's about the most powerful structure a man can put out, but in the wrong place, it can cost you dearly. How does it work? I'll not be teaching you that play. If you knew truly how to use it, I'd have to give up playing chess against you. The very fact that you even know about the move tells me you know the game altogether too well. It's been nice chatting with you. I think we may hang about a bit and chat with some of the students. Whatever you like. Me, I've got dishes to tend to. Thanks again. Perhaps we'll chat later. He's a relatively nice fellow. Let's talk to this guy. We could stay the night, but I'm not going to do that. The man accepted their company. Owen chatted idly with the rough-looking fellow as Gorath looked on, making certain that in his ebullient mood, the magician didn't slip and give away the true purpose of their travels. We've already had this conversation in our last episode. What about this guy up here? The common room grew quiet. Turning so his face could only be seen by the man whom he had approached, James greeted the man loudly, then pitched his voice lower. Are you a swordsman or a storyteller? A smirk appeared on the man's lips. And what makes you think I'm either? Because when a common room falls this unnervingly quiet, it means the locals expect either a fight or a tale, James muttered. So which is it to be? Looking down at the counter near his elbow, the man sighed. Seeing as how I've left my sword at home, and I've only a butter knife at my immediate disposal, I suppose a tale to pass the time to be more prudent at this juncture. Mostly his stories were about battles, large and small, fought sometimes for fame and glory, but always for the coin of the right color. He had traveled up and down the Kingdom of the Isles, but never had he found a minute's peace in any place that he slept. When at last he'd come to the conclusion of his storytelling, he thanked James for listening and stumbled off looking for something closely resembling a bed. What about this person here? James motioned to the figure across the room. The woman nodded, then made her way across the wooden floor until she was standing before them. This is Petrum. Wherever did you get those clothes, Lyle? Must have snitched them off a marquee somewhere. You're getting a mild bit bolder, aren't you? I'm afraid you have me mistaken for someone else. My name is James. James, is it? Oh, of course it is. And I'm not your Grand Petrum either. I take it. You're masquerading again. This isn't like that time you ran about Malik's Cross for a month begging and chewed up soap, is it? Oh, but you made some fine sovereigns with that act. With all that foam coming out of your mouth, a body would think you had the creeping mongus, and they'd pay a pretty coin just to have you away from them. You've always been a wily one, Lyle. Did you pinch any bread for me? Why can't you buy your own bread? Who pissed in your pot, eh? You know perfectly well that I haven't had nothing since Jack died, unless... What are you doing with an elf, boy? Don't you know they bring bad luck? They're the ones what killed Jack and are stirring up all that trouble in Sethanon. What's got into your head? Have you run mad? What trouble in Sethanon are you referring to, madam? You really aren't Lyle, are you then? But you're his mirror image, aren't you, how could this be unless some kind of fairy evil, isn't it? That's what it is. Some kind of fairy magic, and you've finally come for me. Took Lyle's form. We aren't brothers of the dark path, miss. Please, trust us. Perhaps I may bear some resemblance to this Lyle character you're talking about, but we're just ordinary folk. I would like to talk to Lyle, however. He sounds like he might be a relative. I guess you don't look like evil fairies, leastways none I've ever heard of. So Lyle might be your brother. I don't know. I never knew my father, and my mother never mentioned a twin, but when I was taken captive in Krondor, a few of the men who were guarding me kept asking about places I'd never been to and about people I've never met. At first I wanted to dismiss what they were saying, but then I got to thinking about some of the events that happened before the Battle of Sethanon. Someone tried to slip in a double for Prince Arutha. Maybe the mortal are repeating their old strategies. This is all very interesting, but I haven't had a bite to eat in days. Do you think you could spare something for me? Sure, let's buy her food and maybe she'll give us more information on Lyle. I've got a pack of rations that are yours, providing you tell us a little more about this Lyle. Last I saw of him, he was heading towards Lytton. Said something about wanting to meet some gentlemen there. More than likely, he'll be staying away from the main roads. Try as he might, he does have a tendency to get into trouble now and then. Thank you, miss. Watch out for yourself. Okay, well, we already heard of his activities in Lytton. Remember, he's the one that sold that hand to that other guy. So the one guy, I forget his name, stole the hand from the grave, but he got scared and dropped it behind that house. Lyle found it, took it to Lytton, sold it to the gentleman in Lytton, who thought it was a glory hand. The man in Lytton got mad, threw it in the well. We bought it back, and now we know that Lyle is probably in Darkmoor. Alright, before we leave the tavern, let's go ahead and bard. Alright, we didn't do too badly. We got 22 sovereigns and 2 royals. It's sounding better than it used to. We still need the patrons to be very drunk to demand that we get paid, but... Alright, let's look around the shop. Ooh, this is a good weapon shop where we could buy better swords, it looks like. And armor if we needed it. Let's go ahead and sell this additional armor that we're holding that we don't need. We don't have any extra weapons to sell at this point, and we're in fairly good shape. What's this book here? The Psalms of Dala. The illuminations inside the book depicted a variety of scenes. A man blocking a sword thrust, the goddess Dala watching over men on the field of battle, mercenaries kneeling in front of the Temple of Dala near High Castle. Overall, the text looked more like a religious tract than a manual on battle. I don't know when we got this, honestly. But I believe if I use that, it'll probably improve my sword play. We'll use that a little later once we leave town. Let's go to the temple here. Once again, we will look at the mandala. Gives us another teleportation location. So this is the Chapel of Ishop. James motioned to the figure across the room. The man walked over to join them. He stood before them, eyebrows arched inquisitively. Abbot Graves. Welcome, gentlemen. What brings you to the Abbey Ishop? My young charge here wished to visit your famed school of nobles. I don't think he would have let us leave Malak's Cross without paying a visit. Well, 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 I am pleased to see that our reputation precedes us. Am I to assume you are interested in becoming a new pupil, or are you visiting from our estimable rival, the Academy of Magicians of Stardock? My father would never allow me to study magic formally. Even though he more than has the financial resources to send me to Stardock, he thinks it's a waste of a young noble's time to spend 10 and 20 years with his nose stuck in a book, and yet be hardly capable of doing anything else. If it weren't for a magician named Patras that I met once, I wouldn't know anything of magic at all. It is true that magicians study for longer periods of time with fewer visible results, but no course of study is a waste of time. And while magic is not a primary staple in our directed studies here, Magician Pug is kind enough to occasionally send instructors from Stardock to lecture on issues that involve magicians. If you would be interested in enrolling... I regret that we don't have the time for that kind of detour. He's on crucial business that takes him elsewhere. What about you, Signor? Is there anything in our curricula that interests you? Books and scrolls? I'm a bit too old for that sort of thing now. Really? How unfortunate for you, and I was preparing to offer you a chance to attend a lecture on tactics that's being taught by one of our guest instructors. And now that I think on it, you probably wouldn't be interested. It's being taught by this, well, odd fellow, a one-eyed gentleman who goes by the name Bastira. Bastira? You mean Guy de Bastira, King Liam's first advisor? Yes, I believe that's his title. It's part of the Abbey Ishop's arrangement with King Liam. In exchange for setting aside part of our facilities here for the purposes of education, the king occasionally will loan us some of his finest minds in the kingdom. It works to our mutual benefit. I can still arrange to allow you in if you're interested for a small donation of 20 sovereigns. What say you, Signor? Let's do. That must be the invitation we need to attend that lecture. I think we can make time. Where do we need to go? In town, near the Queen's Row, there's a small hall that we've reserved for the king's speech. Simply present this ticket at the door and they will admit you all. I believe you will be in for a stimulating evening. Thank you, we are looking forward to it. So, Guy de Bastira is a character from the novels, and I won't say more so as not to spoil things, but if I remember correctly, he's originally an enemy, but he ends up becoming an ally later on. Alright, let's attend that lecture. A man took their ticket at the door. Waving smoke from his face, James was surprised by the number of young nobles seated in the lecture hall, most looking as if they'd rather be drinking ale in the tavern across the street. Despite that, they made a friendly company, as they offered up seats to James and his companions. "All rise for Guy of Rhiannon, first advisor to the throne of Kingdom of Isles," a page announced from the rear of the room. After an uncomfortably long wait, a pair of men dressed in purple tabards advanced to the foot of the rood stage and took up station, the looks on their faces stern and watchful. Quick behind them was a man dressed all in black, from tunic to trousers to the patch over his left eye. Mounting the stage between his escorts, he looked out on the assemblage as if they were all his soldiers on the field. Seeing James, a smile touched the first advisor's face. "It seems I'm not the only first advisor here, James of Krondor," Guy said, motioning for everyone to take their seats. "I'm surprised Prince Arutha could spare your company." James shrugged and covered with a quick lie that seemed to satisfy all in the room, as anxious as the rest for the lecture to begin. Hours passed. After a lengthy discussion of the battles at Deep Taunton and the siege of Shamata Garrison, the first advisor finished his lecture and dismissed his boggled students, stepping down from the podium to speak with James. A grave look was on Guy's face as he grasped the senior's shoulder. "You're lucky most of the men in this room don't know Arutha," he whispered, glancing at Owen. "If they did, none of them would believe you'd been sent to Romney to fetch this puny young squire. I'm also curious to know why you're traveling in the company of a dark brother." Seeing the fire burning in the advisor's good eye, James realized the old man was asking the questions in deadly earnest, and that his two escorts were standing close for reasons other than show. "I'll not have Arutha betrayed." Waiting until the rest of the students had been shunted out the door, James quickly began to explain the situation, allowing Gorath to fill in the details which he only partially knew. When he mentioned the Nighthawks and Romney, the first advisor nodded. "Prince Arutha is right to send you to Romney," Gay said. "There is a group of kingdom men there. I had Duke de Sevigny send them a few months ago when we heard about the guild troubles brewing there. We had suspicions the Guild of Death was involved." Grabbing up his cloak, the first advisor nodded to his escorts to check the streets. "If anyone in the kingdom can find the Nighthawks, it'll be those men from Bastira. They've been of great help in the cause of the kingdom over the past few years. I'll warn you, however, they've made quite a few enemies along the way. Watch your step between here and the Black Sheep Tavern." Once the guards had indicated the road was clear, he was gone, and the building's watcher shuffled them outside. Okay, well that was interesting. I believe that's all we can do here. There's the house, the temple, the shop, and the inn. Let's go ahead and leave town. Our abilities have increased. Let's take a look and see what we did. Our assessment ability has increased. Everybody's assessment. Owen's barding. That must have been from attending that lecture. Let's rest through the evening until the morning. Alright, so that was the town of Malek's Cross. Let's head back to the main road. Alright, let's double check our map here. If we continue a little bit more to the west, we should come to the town of Darkmoor. And if we go to Darkmoor, we should be able to find Lyle Rigger, the man who seems to have a face that's very similar to James. Maybe he's an old relative. Maybe he's just something. Maybe it's just a coincidence, or like James said, maybe it's a plot by the Mordell, a double who's been sent to cause trouble. Either way, I think it's in our best interest to investigate, find out exactly who this Lyle person is and what he's up to. And that's what we'll be doing next time. In our next episode, we're continuing westward to Darkmoor. I'll see you then.